Hi everyone. This is part 2 of the Melona business bag tutorial from Tryxus Design. So I'm so glad you could join me today. Let me show you what we did in part 1. We did our zipper panel. We did our side pockets for the exterior. We made our handles. And we did our bag bottom. So it's ready to go. Today, we are going to finally get to do this gorgeous front panel. Yay! We are going to do the back exterior and put a zipper in. I've already done the top of the front panel, but we'll be doing the back so you can see how I did that. That's what we will be doing today in part 2. Part 3 will be the lining, and then part 4 we'll put it all together. So let me move this camera angle and we'll get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is this front panel. And it has to be a stroke of genius to take this and end up with a horizontal block for the front panel. It's just a stroke of genius. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you cut out this pattern piece is you're going to want to make sure you cut to the lines where she specifies with the scissors to cut to. So you're going to cut on all of those lines to the straight line. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to make little notches at the top where she shows you to do. And the third thing that I would suggest you do is to mark on your pattern piece the bottoms of the darts. So on my pattern piece I've marked these within the seam allowance, of course, so that I'll know where to turn. I've got the top, but I need the bottom edges as well. So let me show you what that looks like. So I have mine cut. I have each edge of the dart marked. There's the center of the dart. And then I have them split where they need to be, just like the pattern piece. So one of the things that I found to remember when doing this is fold, sew, fold, sew, fold, sew, etc. And you will not mess up if you do that. You have to remember, which I didn't in one of my visits, was to fold after one of my seams, and then it messed the whole thing up. So this is A, B, C, D, and E. And that's the order we're going to fold and sew. So this is A here, and here's my one side, here's my center, and there's the other side. Actually, over here's the other side of A. So A goes like this. So we're going to take our little slit and our little mark we made for the edge of the dart. And we're going to fold it over to the second line. And as you can see, she has a little point there, so you know exactly where to fold it back at. So make sure those edges are even. And we're going to give it a little clip. Now remember, I said fold, sew, fold, sew. I'm going to move my pins over here. So we made a fold. We're going to have to sew that fold down. So we're going to take B and we're just going to fold that over. You can see where that nice slit is. And it's going to go right to the edge of that other one. We're going to pin this down real quick. You're going to fold this just like you would a dart if you were making clothes. You're going to start with almost nil seam allowance here. And you're going to get a little bit bigger, up to maybe 1/8 of an inch. And you're going to sew all the way to the bottom. So you can start at the bottom or the top. It's totally up to you. Either way, it would be easy to see. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I take that back. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to put my needle in the very edge. Make one back stitch. And then I'm going to increase to about 1/8 of an inch. So you can see on the back where we sewed down our fold we made for A. So what the rules are: fold, sew. Now we have to fold B. And B was here. And here's my other line for B. So basically it just folds straight over on this slit we already have. We're going to fold it straight over. And we're going to pin it just like we did before. And then to sew it down, we're going to flip over this little dart. I just want to make sure I got this right. That looks right. So again, we're going to sew from the point to the end here. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you start at the bottom or the top. Now see how easy we have done a fold, a sew, a fold, a sew. It's time to fold again. So then B gets folded. Okay, so we finished sewing the fold of B down. So now we're going to fold C. And it's so easy to follow. C's your next one. There's my little line I drew. Here's my pleat back here. So we're just going to take the next fold. There's the line I drew. There's my little pleat. Here's my edge, my corner. We're going to fold that down. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold this over. I'm just making sure that that is in there perfectly so that I will get that sewn down. So we have now sewed down A, B, and C. So now we have to fold D over using our line that we drew and our notch, and we're going to fold it over to the line. We're going to fold it back onto there. And see what I did. I folded it back to the edges even. Then we're going to fold this back and we're going to sew the last dart. I've got it just a tad long, so I'm going to back up and push it down to my marking. Okay. This is our last dart. It's the shortest. Okay, we're almost there. The last thing you want to do, there's your last mark. You want to push it up here to the side. Well, I can't clip it that way. You're going to fold back down right on that mark to make that a straight line. So let me do that real quick. We're just going to base that down along the edge of the side. You can kind of push your little things down if you want to, but there you go. So if in case any of that was not clear, I'll be happy to do another one, but it's not as hard as it looks. So this is the bottom of the front panel. Now that we have that completed, I have already sewn the top of the front panel. I mean, I've already added the strapping for the straps. And the way I know that this is the top is that I made sure the little seams on my rectangle rings were at the top, because my strap will cover that. So that'll look its best if that does not show. So this is the top, which means this is the bottom of it. This will get sewn to the top of your lower front panel. So that's your upper and your lower front panel. It's a little finicky because we do have those notches that we cut in the top when we were doing it. These little notches, I made sure that I did not cut them too far because I didn't want to have an issue putting this on. So we're going to sew this with the 3/8 seam. Now you're probably going to want to add some top stitching on here. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold your seam upward and you're going to top stitch onto the top panel. Now I did go ahead and do these ahead of time, but I'm going to do them on the back for you. So I didn't think you needed to sit through it twice. So there's your front panel. It is ready to go. Isn't that great? Even not using a contrasting colors, I still think it's pretty. I'm using contrasting black thread to add to it. So there's your front panel. The next thing we're going to do is add our zipper panel into the back. Now as you can see, I've already pre-punched my holes for the strapping detail that we're going to add. But first, I think I want to put that zipper in while there's nothing else in the way. So here are my 2 pocket pieces. So we are going to put our zipper in first. So this is the back panel that we're going to add the zipper to. Now I cut out a zipper space for my zipper because since this bag is all the same and not using a contrasting color, I'm not going to use the zipper overlay because it wouldn't show up. So I'm just doing plain. I am using the zipper overlay in the interior of the bag. I have pre-cut the holes for my strapping effects up here. But I want to do the zipper first to get it out of the way without all that other stuff. So I would put some zipper tape, some double stick tape on there. And you want to sew your zipper on right side up. And your lining right side up. If you've never done this before, you'll see why. So, almost a 3/8 seam allowance because this is a number 5 zipper. But really, I just kind of use my zipper foot as a guide. Okay, we're going to put some tape on this other piece. If you were using a directional fabric, you would want to make sure that you were putting your tape at the top of your design, not the bottom. We're going to take this off. Our lining fabrics right side together to the wrong side of the zipper. So, I'm just going to push that onto the zipper. I just like using tape because I think it helps me stay away from a weighty zipper. So again, we're going to sew this on. Now see, the wrong side of your zipper is on the inside where your pretty fabric is. So what I do on zippers, instead of going to the ironing board and ironing this down, I'm going to edge stitch both sides about 1/16, just as close as I can get. I'm going to edge stitch that down. Or understitch. If you do any kind of garment sewing, it's known as understitching. But it all does the same thing. It holds your lining down. Around the collar, around the pocket facing, around the zipper. Basically anywhere you use facings, you can understitch as long as you can get to it. So see how nice and flat that is? So when I go to sew my zipper on, this is laying so flat for me. So I'm going to add tape to the top edge of my zipper on both the top and the bottom. I always keep my tape out of the seam allowance just in case. Now, it's probably best to get a zipper pull on there before I do the unthinkable. So I'm just going to trim it up. Run a little lighter across it. Now, since this is the inside of the bag, doesn't matter which way you pull it, because it's reversible at this point. Once you put it on, you know which side. So I'm going to pull this apart, stick this baby in where you can see it, stick the other side in. It'll only go about halfway. Okay, pull this one back to match it, and just push them up together. There we go. So, I'm going to peel this tape off, and we are going to position our hole over this. Now, if you had put on a zipper overlay, it would be the same thing. You would have this same hole cut out. I like to stand up so I can look down at it and get it 100% even. Okay, there we go. Nice and flat. Now, I always start on the bottom, about right here, and I go all the way around. And when I get to that same spot, I stop, push my zipper pull through, and then I do the remaining last little bit. So right now, it's back here out of my way. So I'm going to start about right there. We're going to top stitch this zipper in place. Make sure the bottom is down here. How many times have we sewed the bottom up? Just remember to be careful around the teeth of your zipper. Just go slow. And the reason I start where I showed you is because it reminds me to get this zipper pull out when I get back there. So I'm just going to push that pull up out of the way. We're going to continue. So since this is the outside of the bag, I'm going to pull these threads through. If you've never done that, you just give a tug. We're going to hold one out of the way. You give a tug on your bottom thread, and it's going to pull up a loop. So you can see a little loop right there that it pulled up. If you pull that loop, that's your top thread. So then I'll pull the other one. And it gave me a little loop right there. So now, I don't have any back stitching. So I'm just going to tie it in a quick knot. You can burn those ends if you want to. There you go. Now I actually noticed a place where I didn't go down far enough at the end of the zipper. So I'm going to fix that real quick. run right back into where I started. I'm just going to trim those. Okay, so our zipper's done. So we do the same on the other side. Sometimes you would need to trim off your extra on your zipper lining, but I didn't cut any extra. I just cut this just big enough to fit, so I'm really not going to have to trim my seam. So I am, however, going to trim that zipper. So there's my zipper. So let's do the work for the strapping here that I had already done. Oh, one more thing. I was going to put my little label on it. So let's get that put on real quick. If you have a label or a metal tag or a sew-on label, you can do it before or after. If I was using the overlay, I would have sewn it onto the overlay because it has a place for it. But since I didn't use the overlay, I'm just going to have to sew it on. And I know this is 12 inches wide. So the middle point is 6. These are 2 inches. So I want to go 5 inches over, and I can put this right below my zipper. So I'm going to hold my zipper pocket out of the way and sew this on. And yes, I probably should have done it first, I know. I'm going to do the same thing with my label as I did with my zipper. I'm going to pull them up till I see a loop. There we go. So once in a while I'll pull the wrong thread and then I'll have an empty spot and I'll have to put a needle and thread and go back and sew over that one. Okay, so our zipper's in. My little things had fallen in the trash. Goodness. Okay, I have some rivets here that I'm going to use. And I have 2 of these big thick rectangle rings. Since I did the front already, I knew where to punch my holes. So to make this a quicker process for you, I have pre-punched my holes. And I just think that's a good idea. Once you get it punched on one side, go ahead and punch the rest. And you don't have to do any more measuring. So I'm going to put this through here. Remember, your little seam goes towards the top. So I'm going to push my rivets through here, and I'm going to push them through there. I'm just going to pop them on. I will anchor them down later. You can now make a little basting stitch to hold that in place, which I'll do in a minute. So again, make sure on the opposite side that you are again getting your little crease at the top. So I'm going to pop these rivets in, pop them in these last two holes. Now on this pattern, it shows you, she tells you how long to make your straps and that sort of thing. Well, I made mine a little longer, the short ones and the long ones, because I wanted to do double rivets. So think about that ahead of time, what you want it to look like. If you want double rivets instead of single, you're going to need to make these straps just a little bit longer. And I just kind of made them really long just because I knew I would have some room to work with. So you're going to place these in here like this. Now when I did the front, then I had to make sure that they were tight enough. So I did all of that before I punched my holes. So I just know when I do the back that it's all going to work out right. I'm going to do the same for the other side. Pull it till the holes meet up. Then pop them through the back. So I'll anchor these down later. You don't need to see me do that. But there you go. It's that quick. I will probably go in and trim, like this side's a little longer right here. I'll probably go in and trim that back. I'm going to anchor these down real quick. I cannot get my chair comfortable today, can I? Okay, so the back is done. The front is done. The sides are done and the bottom is done. So that means that we are ready to put the exterior together. So this is not hard at all. Very good directions in the directions. First thing we're going to do is sew our base to the back and the front. So we're just going to flip that over I've already got my, actually, one thing I am going to do, because I know it'll always comes up later, always mark the middle of your bottom panels. Always mark the middle of your pocket things, side pockets. Sorry about that. Also mark the middle of the top of the side pockets, because you are going to need that later. I'm just going to butt that up against there. Make the same marking. Okay, so we have our middles marked. You will not need any markings on the front and back of your bag. So we're ready to put this on. Remember, you had these little clips in the front, so it's not a completely straight edge because the clips will skew it just a little. So you just pin it to be straight, and all is well. Okay, we're going to seam that. I think I'll leave my zipper foot on. 3/8 of an inch. There you go. I guess you could top stitch this if you wanted to. I just haven't done it on this bag. Now we're going to put the bottom of our back to the other side of the back. This one's a little more easy to clip on place because there's no breaks in the fabric. Right, you guys know what I forgot to do. I forgot to add my Decoville to the front because I didn't want to iron it down. So it's going to be out of the seam allowance anyway, so I can just stick it right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it down with a piece of tape, since I don't want to glue the vinyl front down. I'm going to put a piece at the bottom as well. I should have put it on that, but that's okay. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to pull this up like this, just to measure that. Stick it down. I'm going to stick it down at the top. So, there we go. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew the sides up, and then the exterior will be done. Remember the middle mark we made in the bottom of our pocket? We are going to line it up with the middle mark on the bottom of the bag. But first, lest I forget, we are only sewing this seam 3/8 of an inch. We are going to start and stop, in other words, 3/8 of an inch in. So when I sew this on, I'm going to start here and stop there. And that's going to line right up with where my seams are for the bottom of the bag. While you may think this is going to be hard, it really is not. So you're actually sewing this. You really wouldn't have to mark it if you didn't want to, because what you're going to do is you're going to sew from seam right there, and you're going to stop at the other seam. You can kind of feel with your needle where that seam is. Whoa, I didn't mean to go back. You take that needle up. Now I mean to go back. It will be easier to sew the other one on right now as we're sewing. While this is still open, so I matched up my middle. I'm double checking to make sure that I'm sewing the bottom so the pockets will be where they need to be. So I didn't mark this one, but I can see and feel where my seam is. So I'm going to start there, take a stitch, back stitch, Most of you probably do all of your exterior seams twice, and I do as well. So I'm going to go ahead real quick and just sew right up next to that line. And on the other side as well. Okay, so now is where we're going to turn up and do these side seams. So the easiest way to get that done is to clip on your bag piece, not the pockets, right up to where you sewed. So clip right beside there, and that helps the turn, helps everything lay flat. And I'll show you just what I mean. When I pull this up here, you're going to want to match your top edges. And you really don't have to stress over the bottom corners, because it's going to fall into place for you. See how we made that turn? Then this, again, you're going to sew you'll have to hold your bag out of the way, your bottom, but you're going to sew from where you stopped all the way to the end. It might be easier to sew from the top. In fact, I think it will. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to come right down to where I stopped sewing. Same seam allowance, 3/8. Now what you do have to do is just manipulate a little bit to get to that seam good. You're going to sew to that very place you stopped. And back up. Excuse me. So I'm going to look at my corner. It looks good. I don't see my little flashlight that I usually use. So we're just going to take the next side. We're going to pull it right up. Excuse me. Tops aligned. Just keep pinning your seam. I'm actually going to start at the bottom this time because it looks like it'll lay pretty flat. Well, if I start at the top, and I'm going to sew right down to the place where I stopped on the other side. And just kind of bend your base towards itself. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to be just as stiff as it was. And I'm going to sew right to that point again. Back stitch. And there you go. That was easy. I love bags that are made this way. I know that Decoville doesn't come over that far. We got a little thicker right here where we sewed down the sides of that front panel. So I did not clip this yet. So I'm going to clip the bag part. Like that. And then it'll help it lay down for me to get the sides done. Again, I'll have to push that towards itself. So here I go once again. I'm going to take this, push that away from the corner, and stop at that exact stitch. One more and we've got this bag, the exterior put together. It does take a little bit of maneuvering at the bottom, especially when you're down to the last corner. But it's still just maneuvering. Okay, so what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to stitch over my seams a second time, and then I'm going to clip the corners so that when I turn the bag they'll lay nicely. So I will do that off camera. That would be boring for you to watch it. And I have to go back in and smush my rivets together. So that is putting together the exterior of the bag. So when I start part 3, I'll show you what this looks like and what we did in part 1. And in part 3 we'll do the lining and get it ready to sew into the finished exterior. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It'll really help me a lot, and I so enjoy doing these videos. It's really fun. Beatrix has been great to work with and so kind to allow me to do them. So stay tuned for part 3, which will go up in 4 or 5 days. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.